Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home. Thank you so much for watching us every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 o'clock. We look forward to talking with you every single day. You know, you're the apple of my eye. Thank you again so much for watching. I know you could be doing anything else, but you're watching Afternoon Drive Home. We definitely appreciate that. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host. There's a number of ways you can watch. No, we're on television now, and we're on channel 182 on Charter Communications. You can also find us on the web. I see radio is in Christ radio.media. You can also find us on afternoondrivehome.com. We've been there for how many years? You can still look us up that way. And you can download the apps, by the way, they're free. So go to Apple and just type in IC Radio Media. You can listen to the programming 24/7, all the music you like. You can even send us requests. And you can only do 3 per hour, okay? Some of you guys would monopolize it. So we just do 3 per hour. But any song you would like to hear, go ahead and do it. And if you're an Android, go to their store, and you can also type in IC Radio. We're on all the social media pages. We do Facebook Live. You know, we've been doing that for years. And you can also find us on Twitter. We're just everywhere. All of the conservative sites as well. I'm waiting on the Donald Trump one to happen. I think I'm like 400 and something thousand to be in the site. But anyway, we're waiting on that to happen. As soon as that happens, we'll be there as well. So again, thank you so much for watching. Coming up on tomorrow's show, 12 noon, we have a new show that we've added to the station. It's called Picking on the Ridge, and it's with host Jimmy Spears. And I have to say this, Alan, I didn't know we had so much music talent in this area. It must be something in the water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's always having these really nice, talented people come on the show that don't have a big career in music, but they should. They sound really nice. And then also another show where everybody knows your name. We've got that one as well. And I'm doing this one with Rob Patz. You know how Rob is. You never know what the show's going to turn into. We will have some talking points. He always gets off topic. What's wrong with him? So he'll be coming in from Ohio. So we're glad to see Rob. And then my friend Rick Staines, who's been on the show since, 2005. He's been with me a long time. We're going to be talking security. And a lot of you have already sent a lot of questions you would like for me to ask him. And this is about what in the world's going on. Why are, people are taking your money, they pretend to be somebody else. So it seems like since COVID, they're coming out of the woodwork. So he's going to give you some tips on how to know a real person from a fake person. We all need that one. So I'm looking forward to talking with him. Now, today at 2 o'clock, we're going to be talking with John Fowler, and he is with Northeast Alabama Community College. Always great to see all the great things you're doing in the tech world. Some nice, good paying jobs out there. So get trained for them, okay? And you'll have a career forever. So we'll be talking about that with John. He's a friend to the show. But right now, I have another friend to the show. His name is Alan Mendenhall. Hey, Alan, how are you doing?
Donna, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Long time no see. Had COVID and got backlogged, but we're going to work you out on being on the show at least once a month.
Okay. Yeah, we did that for several years. I was thinking about it after you invited me on. I think I started coming on the show in maybe 2016, and we probably did monthly, a monthly thing for 5-6 years, however long. I think COVID killed our momentum. Yeah.
I don't like COVID. I'm not into that. So now you actually have another position. Is that right?
Well, I'm Associate Dean of the Sorrell College of Business at Troy University and Executive Director of the Manuel H. Johnson Center for Political Economy, which is housed in the business school at Troy. So I sort of have 2 hats. One involves external relations and that sort of work with the business school, and the other involves running the Johnson Center, which has a lot of different elements to it. We have a master's in economics, and we have positions that are fully funded for all of our students. So we pay all of our students tuition. Actually, our generous donors do. And we pay them stipends to be graduate assistants. And so they come through our program debt-free, at least in terms of tuition debt. They may run up credit cards or something like that. I don't So there's that aspect of what the Johnson Center does. And then we host public events. We just did one last month. We had Governor Mitch Daniels, who is now the president of Purdue University, come in, and he was head of the OMB in the George W. Bush administration. And he is one of the most innovative entrepreneurial leaders in higher education. He's been on the forefront of efforts to make higher education affordable and accessible. He's slashed budgets at Purdue. He has partnered with Amazon on some textbook deals. He has instituted an income share agreement program whereby Purdue, in order to prevent students from going into student debt, will pay a certain number of students tuition. And rather than owing the federal government money, student loan money, the students come out owing Purdue money, and without any sort of interest, they pay Purdue back, and they pay a portion of their salary going out until they pay off their tuition that way. And so it's a great program. It keeps students from having to sign up for the high interest rates that come with federal student loans and for bogging themselves down and that sort of debacle. And Mitch Daniels was a great speaker. He did a great job. We had a great program. And then the Johnson Center will produce policy reports. This is sort of a new thing. We've produced policy reports in the past before I got there, but making it an annual thing is new. And we're going to have some researchers go out and interview small businesses and chambers of commerce about the regulatory burdens they face on a local level. So we're going to be dealing with kind of county and municipal regulations. And after we get several interviews underway and we find out basically a list of some maybe 50 obstacles that small business owners face, then we'll hire a professional surveyor to frame questions in the way that professional surveys have to be framed, and they'll go and survey another group of people throughout the state, and then we'll figure out maybe the top 3 to 5 regulatory burdens that small businesses face in the state. We'll do a policy report on that and draw attention to it. And you just never know what happens from there. So yeah, the Johnson Center is great. It's a free market economics program. It's named for Manuel H. Johnson, who was on the Federal Reserve Board. He was actually vice chair under Alan Greenspan, but he's from Troy, Alabama. And he began his career as an economics professor at George Mason University. He actually went to Troy, graduated from Troy, and then went on to get his PhD. And now he does all kinds of different things, but he's still very active. He's in his mid-70s, and he's a very generous donor to our program.
You know something, I love seeing folks act. You know what? Age is just a number.
Sure it is.
And you see some of these really successful folks and they just keep going at it, you know, and maybe their family members may suggest, you know, you need to retire. You need to slow it down just a little bit. That I'm supposed to be retired myself. And what did I do? I turned around and opened the
Well, I tell you what, Donna, I'm 38, and for years, for over a decade, I really didn't do a good job of exercising or eating well or anything like that. But I have started doing that over the past year, maybe a little more during the pandemic. And I feel younger now than I did during those last 10 years. I mean, I used to get cramps in my leg when I slept, and my back would hurt if I tried to move furniture or this or that. And now I feel younger and healthier and stronger than I ever have just by doing daily exercise, working out, running, eating right. I mean, people have been telling me this for years. It's not like it was a secret that this is how you stay, but I actually started doing it.
We do too, and I feel better. We're living in Charlotte, North Carolina, basically in town, and it was fun. I mean, I love living there, and I still miss all my friends. But we moved on the farm, and so we grow most everything we eat, the veggies.
That's neat.
And I happen to love vegetables, and so I've got a greenhouse now, and all my friends in Charlotte are like, "I can't believe you've turned into a farmer," and I'm having so much fun at it. But they tell me I look younger. And I'll say, you need to be a farmer, you know, just have a little garden area. You can do it on the back, you know, if you have a deck and a small deck, you know, just have a raised garden. You can do that, but you're right. A little exercise, eating the right foods, not so many burgers. Now I love burgers and fries. I just don't eat as many as I used to.
Yes, I agree. I had a pretty sizable breakfast this morning at the Montgomery Chamber, and I'm skipping lunch because I have burger night at Auburn University Club tonight, and I know I'm going to get a big old burger. So I figured I'll just skip one of my meals. If I can tough it out and wait till dinner, then I can, without guilt, consume one of those double-decker burgers with the onion ring on it. So here I am telling you how healthy I am, and now I'm telling you what I'm about to eat for dinner.
A burger that Big.
Your listeners can see how reliable I am. Who knows? They're not going to believe anything I say now.
Yeah, they are. They
Uh,
enjoy having you on the show. So we talked a little bit about, about what you put inside your body and then exercising on the outside. But something to be smart, let me ask you this. I don't know if I'm from the old school or what the deal is, but if I've got a choice, and I've been meaning to ask you about this, if I've got a choice from reading something on my cell phone or reading something on the computer or whatever versus a book where I turn the pages, I like the book where I turn the pages. It
I do
seems
too.
like I retain it better.
I definitely do. And when I read a book, you can see, like, I'll grab the one right here. I'm writing a book review. I'm marking up the pages and
Yeah, I
drawing
do
and
too.
making notes to myself and all that kind of stuff. I just lost my page in the process of doing that, but oh well, I'll find it again. But that way you can take notes and do things that you can't really do on the phone. Now, on the other hand, in the morning, as you probably know, I read all kinds of different articles, and mostly from arts and cultural perspective, but I also will read economics and politics, although I don't tweet out as much of my political readings, but I'm still reading them. But I do that on my phone because that's the easiest way to access news. That's really the only way. I don't pull up my desktop and go through. In fact, on my phone, I have a list of favorites, and I don't know how many different publications I have on there, but there are a lot. And I just go through each one in the same order every day to look at basically the headlines, figure out what sort of stories jump out at me, read those. And that process takes actually a few hours, but I do that on my phone. And even if I'm reading and absorbing information, as you say, I feel as if my reading is not as efficient, in the sense that I don't retain the information as well. I agree with you on that. There's something about being plugged in and knowing you're being plugged in, that you're sort of always reading with something else in mind, with something you can do with this article or something. Whereas when I'm reading a book, I sort of feel isolated from the world, and it's just me and the book, and everything else is gone. But when I'm on the phone, I'm thinking of, I'm getting text messages, I'm getting news alerts. I know Facebook is one click away, and it makes it a little more difficult to have a really productive reading session.
Let's talk for a few minutes about depression. Depression is on the rise right now, and I think a lot of it started with COVID. But then we're sitting at home more often. No, I don't. I want a happy balance. As a matter of fact, I don't even listen to the news. I kind of pick,
Yeah.
and I have my particular, and on my cell phone, I'm like you when it comes to articles and things like that. When it comes to a book, I want to turn the pages of it. But how can we make sure we're getting the right information? A lot of folks are they're still afraid, even though the mask mandate has been lifted. And I'm still seeing people freaked out. They're so concerned. They're so worried, about things. And I hate to see people worry about things unnecessarily. How can they make sure what they're watching or what they're listening to is the truth?
Well, that's always the question. Even the legacy media, a lot of people will just default and say, well, if the government said it's true, if the legacy media says it's true. Well, I've been on the other side of that. I worked for politicians, and I've been in the room when things happened, and then I've seen how they were reported. And I remember thinking, how could they get away with, that's not what happened in there. I was in the room, and that is not what happened. And on the other side of that, like I said, I've worked for political leaders, and I've seen them deliberately put out information that wasn't untrue, but it was just a distraction.
Really?
It was
Are
just
you
a distraction
serious?
because if you put this information over here, the media will run to cover all this, when that gives you space to go do this over here. So,
Right.
it's a tough thing when you start. I don't want to even sound conspiratorial or anything like that, but it's always good to question. I go back to, this is going to sound maybe grander than I mean it to, but I go back to Socrates. And the oracle at Delphi predicted that Socrates was the wisest man in all Athens. And when Socrates learned of this prophecy, he said, well, that can't be true. I'm going to prove that it's untrue. And so to do that, he went around asking people throughout Athens questions. And he would ask them questions and ask them questions, and they would respond. And that would generate another question. And then he'd ask them another question, and that their response would yield yet another question. And the more he got them talking, the more he realized, oh, these people don't know anything. You know, they actually think they know a lot of stuff, but they don't. And then the prophecy comes true when Socrates realizes that, oh, I don't know anything, but at least I know I don't know anything, whereas everybody else thinks they know everything, but they don't know anything. So it turns out that I actually am the wisest person because I don't know anything, but at least I know I don't know anything, whereas everybody else thinks they know everything when they don't. And so they're not wise. And that's sort of, you don't know how to take that story, but it's certainly.
Actually, I do. Phil and I've been doing a study on the book of Proverbs.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never be the wisest person on earth, but I have learned a lot. And
it's the most convicting.
Common sense stuff. I think a lot of it is we want to believe that someone is what they say they are. We really, really want to. So sometimes we'll listen to somebody's rhetoric and we'll think, well, they've got good intentions, and they may not. And then if you fall for that, well, then you're going to make mistakes as well. And we're in the middle of a political season right now. So it's, I guess you heard about that. We're in the middle of political season.
We're never out of a political season these days. You know, I feel as if we've had special elections and midterm elections, and then, you know, they never end. Local elections, and it's just it's almost exhausting. You were talking about not watching the news earlier. I know a ton of people. I had a friend in Atlanta. He's one of my college roommates. He's an attorney. We were talking on the phone the other day, and this was maybe a month ago, whenever the Ukraine crisis sort of emerged. And we said, gosh, in past years, we would have called each other because we were news junkies and been talking about this and talking about the end of civilization and what's going to happen. And now we were a little bit jaded. It just, you know, I think everyone sort of has media fatigue after the 4 years of Trump and the legacy media going after Trump and everybody feeling that they had to tune in 24 hours a day to be part of some cause, whether it was pro-Trump or anti-Trump. I think people just got exhausted. And then COVID hit, and everyone's suffering from COVID fatigue. and you know, I just think we're in a transitional phase, and I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if it's malaise or what the French would call ennui, you know, just sort of boredom. But I don't think people are watching the news in the same way. I know that with, you know, CNN, for example, their ratings are way down, but Fox News is still doing quite well. So I don't know that it's an across the board thing, but I do know that a lot of people I talk to, and this is just purely anecdotal, are not watching or listening to the news in the way they used to. And I've turned off NPR. I almost can't tolerate it anymore on the way in. It's just, it's not interesting, and it's boring.
No, it's not news. It's not news anymore.
It's not news
the same humdrum thing over and over again. And, you know, we just don't hear that. We're ready for, okay, so you don't like Trump. Let's get on with something else then. It's pretty obvious you don't like him. Next, I mean, what's the next story? And it shouldn't still be about him. He's not in office, but it's what they're afraid of what is about to happen, I think.
Well, and we don't really have authentic conversations where people of differing perspectives are engaging with one another. Somebody brought this up to me recently. They said, will your university be willing to host a debate between people that are very critical of the COVID lockdowns and masks and those sorts of things, and some sort of public health official? It doesn't have to be at the level of Fauci, but somebody that was, you know, very prominent in promoting a lot of the public health regulations that involved COVID. And would your university be willing to host a debate? And I said, well, probably so, but I don't see you getting high profile people like that on either side who are very passionate on either side. I mean, you might be able to get two people that are sort of close to the center to do something of a debate, but if you're going to get people with two strong views, I haven't seen anything like that going on. I really haven't. And it's so interesting to me that people want to preach to their own camps, but they're just not willing to collide and to sort of fight it out and debate. And that's what that's what federalism is about. That's what our system of checks and balances is about. Our framers operated in a society in which public debate was open and robust and in the public square, and it was very participatory. Alexis de Tocqueville in Democracy of America observed that associational life in America, when he came over here in the 19th century, he said, wow, what an energetic, exciting country. Everybody debates everybody. They have, mutual aid societies. They have civics groups. They have political groups. They have churches. They have, you name it, but everybody was gathering and assembling. And there was a lot of exuberance about being part of America because people talked and people engaged. And now we don't. And I don't know if it's because of the online medium where we're living in these multiverses or metaverses or whatever, and we have anonymity and people are not engaging in good faith to try to find areas of agreement or disagreement or try to ascertain the truth, but they're just coming in with their own presuppositions and trying to convince other people or win battles rather than seeking clarity or understanding. I don't know, but I feel as if technology has been a great benefit to the world, but it's also been a great struggle. This book I'm reading right now is Free Speech, a history from Socrates to social media. And there's a chapter fairly early on that discusses the printing press and how disruptive the printing press as a technology was to European civilization. And when Martin Luther started issuing his views and his teachings and sola scriptura and grace by faith alone and against the selling of indulgences and all these other things, well, it caused a revolution because the ideas disseminated by printing press and the consequences far exceeded anything Luther himself could have expected or desired, because people went wild. Mobs formed and started doing things that Luther would never have endorsed. But we just had a very difficult time as a species, as human beings, adapting to this new technology. And I suspect eventually we will adapt to sort of the online technology we have. We will adjust and it will become new. Now we don't complain about books anymore. Now we love printing presses. Now we talk about how the books are, as we did earlier, are superior to online, So I just think it's new and we're just learning how to deal with it. And we are going to have problems and we've got to work through them for a while. But our generations, yours and mine, we didn't have this stuff. I mean, I remember we didn't have cell phones. I remember we didn't have email.
It was a much simpler life then. I really do. And now now you have to have your cell phone with you all the time because what if somebody gets hurt? What if a family member is, what if somebody? It didn't happen when we were growing. I mean, it could happen, but what I mean is you shouldn't live your life with a cell phone. But I wanted to ask you another question, and this is about, you've touched on it with social media. So do you think the cancel culture, let's pretend there's no Facebook and there's no social media. Do you think the cancel culture would have had as much of a leg to stand on as they do now with social media?
No, I think cancel culture was in the works before social media. The trend was heading that way, but it was not. I guess what social media enabled activists to do is mobilize. And so they were able to transmit information about what we're doing on this campus or what we're doing on that campus. And I'm all for First Amendment stuff, by the way, and for expression, free expression and protest and all of that. But that's the opposite of what cancel culture represents. Cancel culture is the clamping down on views. And it's interesting that, when you're talking about freedom of speech, for example, I mean, you've got to ask the question about what, in past centuries, free speech was cracked down on by, for example, the church. And you might be considered a heretic or a blasphemer for teaching things that we now scientifically know to be true. Like you could have espoused the Copernican view of the sun and said, the earth isn't the center of the universe and the earth rotates around the sun, not the other. And you could have been convicted of heresy or something like that. But we now have scientific development to know that's not the case. But now we ask, well, what's the equivalent of the heretic or the blasphemer now? Is it a Canadian trucker who is protesting against vaccine mandates and different coronavirus restrictions? Are the Parisian demonstrator doing that? Or is it, is it somebody that's questioning whether transgenderism is scientifically sound or on the left viewpoint, or is it somebody who teaches about non-binary gender fluidity in the face of social opposition? I think both sides sit there and claim, well, we're the oppressed. No, we're the oppressed. We're the victim. We're the victim. And, I think cancel culture is very problematic. I think that we train young people to be activists before they are equipped to be activists.
But it depends on what side they're on.
Yeah.
It really does, because if you're a conservative growing up, you're going to get bashed. I mean, that's just, they're all going to come in. Even fake Facebook accounts are going to come in. And I know some of those are not real.
Yeah.
I put something on my page, I think it was over the weekend, and I saw this funny cartoon. I don't care what side you're on, it was a funny cartoon. And it was a guy who was talking, it's like several years ago, the warming and the cooling and all that. So this is back when everybody says, we're going to turn into an ice age. This is the future. That was the first one. So I put that on there, but in the cartoon shows this guy, he's frozen, and he's talking about the outcome of the freezing, that kind of thing. So I put that on. I just thought it was funny. I would have thought it was funny had I been for that kind of thing. So this guy I went to school with, okay, he got to sing with a couple of professional people. So now he thinks he thinks he knows all about, the warming and the cooling and the climate. So he had to put something on my Facebook page. And so I let it go at first, and I just had to do so. I said, well, tell me, which is it? Hot or cold? What's going to end the world? Hot or you need to get, I will listen to you if you will just stick with the same program. But if you switch it around, you go from cold to hot, I'm not going to listen. I mean, I'm done with it. And he really believes this. He got upset, said I was putting false information out there. And so that's when I said, well, just tell me, which is it? What's going to end the earth? Too much cold or too much hot? Just tell me, which is it? And of course, he's always got an answer. But what happens is people want to be a bully. Now, I would never go to his page and put anything on it, because I don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. I don't see the point. I'm not going to change the guy's mind. But on the other hand, they'll go to your page and try to belittle you. But that's what we're seeing a lot of. But I don't think. Yeah. I don't know.
If people seem to be zealous about it, I think it is because in our increasingly secular society, we have replaced traditional forms of religion with new forms of religion. People are not believing in God, and they're not adhering to sort of creedal, doctrinal, old-timey religion, whatever you want to call it. But major religions like Christianity, Judaism, or even Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever else, but religions that have been around for centuries. And people are just purely secular, but to fill the void they sense, I think they're replacing concepts like, let's just say sin or forgiveness, things that are central to Christianity. And they're replacing them with concepts like identity politics, social justice, equity. And these are the ideals toward which they aspire, and they do so with a religious zeal. And they believe in them with such conviction in the way that people would believe in God, and they defend them the way
they're like evangelists.
They are like evangelists, and it's sort of a secular religion, as it were. And that's what's sort of dangerous about the left is, I sometimes wonder what the left's teleology is. What is the left working toward? What is the ultimate goal? If the world could look like something in a perfect state, if you ask someone on the left, what would the world look like in order for you to be satisfied? Like, how would it have to? You can't get any sort of answer, because concepts like equality under the law makes sense. You've got a sort of a general rule that applies equally to all people. That makes sense. But equality as an ideal in other settings actually is an impossibility. I mean, we all know that every single human being is unique. And this is one fundamental tension at the heart of leftism, is that the ideals of diversity and equality are completely incompatible, because humans are wonderfully diverse. We have all kinds of varieties. People look different. People talk different. People have different capacities. People have different talents. Some people write books. Some people play basketball. Some people act out in plays. Some people are wonderful athletes. Other people are wonderful musicians. And this is what makes living beautiful. This is what
It
makes
is. It's a
being
beautiful
human so
thing.
special. And equality is all about leveling. It's about making humans uniform and standardized. That is the exact opposite of diversity. So you can't, on the one hand, as a leftist, advocate diversity, and on the other hand, advocate equality. They're just fundamentally incompatible ideals.
It doesn't work. And I'm going to use my own life as an example. I've often wondered if I had married somebody like me, would I still be married? No, I don't like myself. I don't like myself that much. Phil and I are two complete opposites. And it
Oh,
makes the business work because I like being out there talking to people, making new friends, all that kind of stuff. And he does too. But he actually likes the computer and, making the website work and all that, which is totally
yeah.
boring to me. I mean, what if both of us, we would never have anything done, as far as this, the business part of it, if we were both like me.
Yeah, you make a good team, and that's important. That's
Mhm.
important in relationships.
Yeah, and I think it's important in everything else too. I mean, you can disagree, but I'll go ahead and use myself as another example. Back in the 1970s, there were two girls who were pregnant, and so they went and got abortions. Well, I didn't think anything of it because what was the news saying? Oh, it's just another form of birth control. It's no biggie. But now I changed my mind when I saw what a baby looks like. When you can actually go to the doctor and you can, and these nice moms and
In the
grandmothers,
sonogram, like you see the
yeah,
baby.
the
Yeah,
sonogram, that changed my mind. I was
yeah,
like, wait a minute, that's a human being. I mean, when
yeah.
you see you got twins and they're holding hands or they're sucking their thumb, if they're in there by themselves, that's a human. I'm sorry, I changed my mind on that one.
Well, and I had a
That's
mentor.
science, by the way. That's science.
It is science, and we'll see what happens in this Dobbs case in the Supreme Court. I think we're going to see something very significant happen. My prediction, and I'm not involved in this case in any way. In the way, I'm not a legal commentator the way I used to be because I've moved to a business school.
You are too. Yes, you are.
But I suspect we'll see some sort of ruling that would leave the issue to the states, so to each of the respective states when it comes to that. But I remember growing up, I had a mentor, and when I was sort of in middle school, high school, and he was, he was an adult, but he had been adopted as a kid, and his mom had decided not to get an abortion, and then she had him and put him up for adoption. Well, this person was a very productive member of the community. He was an upstanding citizen. He ended up becoming a judge. He gave back to his community. He was involved in the church. He did all kinds of wonderful stuff for young people. And he may never have existed had his mom made a different choice. And the world was enriched because he lived. And his example has always stuck with me as well as how many other people like him didn't get a chance and who could have been the next Martin Luther King Jr., who could have been the next Einstein, but we just don't know because they didn't get the chance.
Well, you know who my heroes are? My heroes are the woman who became pregnant, and whether it's financially or whatever, she didn't have the abortion and she went through the pregnancy. This woman's a hero. She puts her baby up for adoption. I know that sounds odd coming out of my mouth.
No.
But you just made the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Well, Russell Kirk, I've got a Russell Kirk book right here on my desk, but he was, the dean of conservative letters, so to speak. And he had a home up in Mecosta, Michigan that he called Piety Hill. And they would take in women, they would drive to abortion clinics, and they would wait out there and they would pick up women. They said, you don't have to do this. We have a big piece of land and we have all these cottages on the land. You can come live for free on our cottages. We will provide meals for you and you can raise your child on our property in a cottage of your own. And people took that option. because they were getting abortions for the wrong reason, for financial stress, for judgment, for everything else. And this gave them a place to go, and they got Christian love, and they were cared for by people who were just genuinely awesome people. Annette Kirk is still living, and she's just a wonderful person. And I go up to Piety Hill every so often. I haven't been since before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I was going about yearly, but it's been a few years now. And it's just a really neat place. And Russell Kirk was a very neat person. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to meet him. He passed away before I was even aware who he was. But you sort of feel as if you know him when you read enough of his books.
That's right. And that's why I tell folks, even if it's your favorite, even if it is Fox, even if it is Newsmax, you need to question everything, because I grew up thinking that baby was a blob, and it wasn't a blob. And I feel terrible about that now, so, that's not true. And that's part of I think that's part of the plan, is to keep us all, listening to one thing. You don't want to be beat up. Nobody wants to be told they're stupid, things like that. And just kind of going along with the crowd, because, there's no rebellion there. And I think that's part of the big plan to turn us into socialism.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's just a big deal. Something, we went through the bottom of the hour.
Isn't that amazing?
But that's how we always do that.
That's amazing.
That's okay. So what we'll do is we'll break off a little bit earlier. Let's go on for 4 minutes, and then Phil can go ahead and make up for it with our sponsors. And by the way, you can look at my sponsors with a bunch of them right there.
Oh, I've been watching them go through. The barbecue one went through a minute ago, and I got really hungry.
Oh, I know. But I did want to mention this one thing, and that's the Cattle Stampede Steakhouse in Fort Payne and Scottsboro. They're now offering lunch again, and they have 5 entrees less than $5. And when we go out to eat, Phil usually gets the steak or something. I always get something chicken, and Phil always says, "What kind of chicken you want this time?" It usually is chicken fingers. But I tried their barbecue, and it's good. So you need to go try that out, and it's really good. They've also got shrimp. You can do shrimp if you'd like to do that. And also they have karaoke night. And on Mondays, don't forget, kids eat free. And it's 2 per adult. So I'm sorry, if mom and dad walks in, you got 5 kids, you got to pay for one of them. But that's still a good. Alan Mendenhall is with me right now, and he is an author and a speaker and a talk show host. So let's talk about that. How can folks find your materials?
Well, the easiest way is probably just to go to my website, which is www.alanmendenhall.com. That's ALLENMENDENHALL. And I do my best to centralize it all in that space. It's gotten away from me a little bit, where I'll do something here or there, and I haven't been able to drag it into that space. But that's generally the best place to find, for example, my books are links to most of my writings, not all of them, but to most of them.
Yeah, and I have his books. I don't think I've got your last one. I'll have to go in and get that one. So,
well, the last one's got the best cover I've ever had. It's got a big bow tie. I'm not wearing a bow tie today, but I generally wear bow ties.
Yeah, that's what's different. That's different. I was like, something's different about him to get his haircut.
Well, I did get a haircut too, so it could have been both. I don't always wear bow ties, but I do wear them about 3 days a week, and I'm usually in a tie 6 days a week. It's funny. I send my kids to a classical Christian school, which is at my church, and my children said something to me the other day that it never struck me before. But I was pointing out something out in the playground. I said, "Look at that new thing that was out there in the playground." They said, "Yeah, we noticed it." I said, "How did you notice that?" And they said, "Well, we're here 6 days a week." And I thought, "Oh, they are. They're at church 6 days a week, because Monday through Friday, that's where their school is. And then Sunday they're here. So no wonder they're very familiar with this place." And it actually was a sort of a heartwarming epiphany to have that, oh, my kids are at church 6 out of 7 days a week.
They should be good kids.
Well,
And I know you're raising them right. I know that. I catch up with you on Facebook a lot. Alan, thank you so much for being on the show. As soon as we get off the air, Phil's going to go ahead and make up for our sponsors. And I'll go ahead and look at some dates. What day of the week is generally better for you for a show?
Well, until the end of the semester, which is in May, Wednesdays are bad, but I would say Mondays and Tuesdays are probably best. We're on spring break right now, so that explains why I'm not teaching.
Okay.
This
All right.
My students are all up on spring break. They're not sitting in a classroom waiting for me to get off the air. But normally this is when class is.
All right, I'll look at my Mondays and Tuesdays and we'll pick something out right when we get off the air, okay?
All right.
Okay, folks, let's go ahead and go to a commercial break. We're going to be talking with John Fowler, and he is with the Northeast Alabama Community College. I'm really looking forward to speaking with him as well. It's great seeing you, Alan. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to see you too.
All right, we'll be back shortly.